Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, or Pinocchio if you just want to call it Pinocchio, is a brand new Pinocchio movie that is now streaming on Netflix, and as you may have guessed, it is directed by Guillermo del Toro. Technically, it is titled Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, but you could just call it Pinocchio, but I like to call it Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I want to differentiate it from that other Pinocchio movie that came out this year that I did see and did not want to share my opinion on.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
You've got Gregory Mann as Pinocchio, David Bradley as Geppetto, Ron Perlman plays a bad guy in this movie. Finn Wolfhard shows up in this movie as a certain character. Ewan McGregor as Jiminy Cricket, or like they call him Sebastian in the movie, but it's Jiminy Cricket basically. You guys know the story of Pinocchio, right? There's a father whose magical wish to bring a wooden puppet to life comes true. This puppet tries to experience life as a real boy, and through the ups and downs and the pitfalls of his journey, a bunch of crazy shit happens. A whale maybe shows up, some other stuff that has nothing to do with the Pinocchio lore that pops up in this movie as well. So it's a fun journey. Let's talk about it. I love Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I love this dude. I love the passion that he puts into all of his projects. I love his obsession with and emphasis on fantasy and like mystical, supernatural stuff in his movies. I like that because I'm a big fantasy nerd and I like that shit in the movies that I watch. And I didn't know what to expect from his Pinocchio, but I knew that Guillermo del Toro was gonna direct the hell out of it. And guess what? Guillermo del Toro directs the hell out of this. Side note, after watching this movie, I actually was reminded of, you guys remember that first dark trailer for Avengers Ultron from years ago? Remember where he's singing the Pinocchio song at the end of the trailer and he's like, there are no strings on me, or yada yada, and we were like, holy shit, that trailer's so dark, the movie is gonna be awesome. I am here to tell you, without definitively comparing the films, because I know that they're different movies, I'm here to tell you that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is actually darker than the final product of Avengers Age of Ultron turned out to be. It's not me saying that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is exclusively a dark movie, but it does have darkness in it. It does have maturity in it. This is not your typical Pinocchio movie. Does the movie have heart and humor and joy? Yeah, it has a little bit of that for sure. Gregory Mann, I thought, brought a lot of energy and a lot of life to the voice of Pinocchio. Pinocchio is simultaneously the most annoying and the most wholesome person in the entire movie. This movie has a thematic element to it that I think is going to appeal to both kids and adults. Similar to a lot of his other work, Guillermo del Toro does a good job at mixing in some fantasy elements in here. You know, magic and some weird shit going on in here, and I can't really say more, but you guys get the point. A lot more fun with Ron Perlman as the villain in this movie than I thought, and he definitely sounds like he's having fun. He loves Guillermo. I wish they would do a Hellboy 3 movie already. Also, in terms of animation, it's not enough to say that this movie is gorgeous. This is actually one of the most beautiful stop-motion animated movies that I think I've ever seen in my life. Every frame is perfectly detailed. Every scene is beautifully drawn out. Like, I love the way that this movie looks. Every single scene is teeming with life and energy and purpose. One of my favorite things about stop motion animation is that the animation looks like animation. Like, you could tell that it's animation, but it also has this lifelike quality to it. It's hard for me to really put it into words. This is one of the best versions of that type of movie that I think I've ever seen. It is absolutely 100% eggs on a tit. Seriously, you look at this movie and you think, yum, breakfast. Like, it's a visual feast for the eyes. That's what I'm trying to say. This movie has some interesting things that it's saying to kids about being yourself and doing the best that you can and not being a burden in the world and not feeling like you're a burden. This movie has a lot for adults too, about mortality, about the kind of life that you live, and also about the pressures that you put on your kids and how you should love kids for who they are, not for who you want them to be, not for who you think they should be. The film is actually kind of heavy emotionally, and it deals with relationships between fathers and sons, like kids going to war and, you know, people being used by showbiz. It kind of has it all in a way, and I was hooked, I was captivated, I was entranced for the entire runtime. If I have a few criticisms, there's only a couple of them. One is I do like the musical numbers in the movie, but I do feel like they're not really that memorable in the grand scheme of things. The score is good, but the musical numbers that they do, like the song choices, they feel a little bit forgettable by the end of the movie for sure. I think there is a little bit of a pacing issue sometime in between the second act and the third act when there's just a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of different storylines that the movie's trying to juggle. For the most part, it does a good job at bringing these storylines together, but it also feels like for a while the story's not really going anywhere. My biggest issue is that there's one element, one storyline, one subplot in the final third act of the movie that I feel like kind of just gets abandoned and the movie just doesn't really do anything with it, so that was kind of weird for me. And there is an issue I have about this movie, about the beginning of the movie and what it sets up, what it builds up, and how it makes sense when you contrast it with Pinocchio because of the themes that the movie's going for. But in general, this one element of the movie in the beginning, it felt inauthentic, it felt kind of fake, and it kind of took me out of the movie, especially when you contrast it with Pinocchio and his whole real boy thing. I didn't care as much about it as the movie wanted me to care, and I think that's because of how inauthentic it felt. And that's very vague on purpose because I can't spoil it, because I don't want to spoil it, because I want you guys to experience this movie for yourselves. This is absolutely the best animated movie that I've seen all year. It's one of Guillermo del Toro's best films. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, oh my God, I loved it so much. This one belongs in Superman Prime. So tell me, have you seen it? What's your favorite Pinocchio movie of the year or of all time? Put that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.